This will lock the tensioners into their deactivated states. With the tensioners deactivated, you can now slide the sprockets and chain off of their respective shafts as assemblies. Next, remove the cam phaser control solenoids and discard the gaskets. These gaskets should not be reused. Remove the top front intermediate timing cover bolts that attach to the front cam bearing caps. 3 bolts on the right bank and 4 bolts on the left bank. Now, using the proper removal sequences, remove the front bearing caps on each bank. Here is the removal sequence. With the bearing caps removed, remove the secondary chain tensioners. Things to show you. All 3 timing chains have colored timing links. Both secondary chains have 3 timing mark links, 2 together and 1 separate. The sequential timing marks align to the exhaust secondary cam sprockets. The primary chain uses 2 similarly colored links and 1 unique. The unique colored link aligns to the crank sprocket timing mark. It is very critical to understand the proper sealing application on the front cam bearing cap mating surfaces. There are sealing grooves in the front camshaft bearing caps that mate to the engine's heads and coincide with where the bearing caps are exposed to outside the engine's oil bath. After cleaning all surfaces, a thorough application of sealant in each of these grooves is crucial for the overlap sealing areas between cap and valve covers. Make sure sealant application does not transfer into critical oil supply grooves of the cam bearing caps. The front camshaft bearing caps also have sealant transfer surfaces from the back of the rear timing system case. These surfaces will seal from the sealant application on the back of the rear timing system case. It is critical that the oil ports going through the rear timing system case are not contaminated with sealant. We are now ready to start the assembly. Start by installing the secondary timing chain tensioners. Torque the bolts to 75 inch-pounds. Next, reinstall the camshaft bearing caps. Before we do, let me explain that the rear timing system case should be removed in order for proper installation of the front camshaft bearing caps. We have found that if you are careful, you can reinstall the caps without excessive sealant smear. Apply sealant to the clean mating surfaces and carefully position the bearing caps into place. Try to prevent sealant smear as much as possible. Torque the front camshaft cap bolts in 3 stages in this sequence. The first pass tighten to 17 inch-pounds, then 52 inch-pounds on the second, then 85 inch-pounds on the third and final pass. Once the cap bolts are torqued, install the rear timing system case to bearing cap bolts. Torque these bolts to 10 foot-pounds. Once all bolts are tightened, inspect and clean the oil supply ports on both heads. Make sure to remove any excess sealant found. Install the cam phaser control solenoids using new gaskets. Now we can install the secondary chains and sprockets on each bank. The right bank secondary system uses the circle timing marks, and the left bank uses the oval marks. Align the sequential marks of the secondary chain to the 2 circle marks of the front of the right bank exhaust cam sprocket, and the single mark of the chain to the circle timing marks on the back of the right hand intake cam phaser sprocket assembly. Install the sprockets and chain onto the camshaft as an assembly, and ensure the chain rests inside the raised guides of the secondary tensioner contact pad. Repeat the process for the left-hand cam drive system, except this time use the oval timing marks on both the intake cam phaser sprocket and the exhaust cam sprocket. Recheck all timing marks and then tighten the cam sprocket bolts. Use a wrench on the hex features of the camshaft to torque the bolts to 75 foot-pounds. When finished, go ahead and pull the activation pins on both secondary tensioners. Now install the crank sprocket. Make sure the timing mark is facing forward. Install the left-hand chain guide. Torque the bolts to 16 foot-pounds. Install the primary chain. Align the similarly marked links to the timing marks on the intake cam phasers and the unique link to the mark on the crank sprocket.